Kevin is our Rotarian of the Day online. Can you tell? Well, Chris Norris was supposed to be our Rotarian of the Day, and due to HIPAA rules, I can't tell anything about what might or might not have broke on his arm, why he might have or might have not have been coaching girls softball yesterday. So, our singer-songwriter, bunged up arm, and he just had it operated on. He called me last night, and he said he broke the other one. So Chris is going to be in a sling, and he's yeah. So he told me that Courtland does not need any introduction, and he wouldn't want an introduction, but we want to welcome him back. Courtland said this is like the third time, so he's going to be an honorary member. Keeps this up. So we do want to welcome Courtland. He's going to come up and talk about AI, leadership, and he said he may change it or tweak it just a little bit. So I'm just going to turn it over to Courtland, and thank you for coming and presenting to us again.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Those calls that you get, or at least last night was a text message that I'm not going to be there, but you'll be okay. You don't know what you're getting sent into. Anybody ever been in that spot? All right. So good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. I do believe, it is my viewpoint, that time is our most precious asset, and leadership is what you do with it. And so I never take lightly the opportunity that I have to at least attempt to hold someone's attention. The reason why I said to Shane that I may switch it up or just kind of veer off just a bit is because in driving down, I received something. What my favorite thing about the club is the happy bucks, crappy bucks. The only place I've witnessed that is here. I really like that. So I have some crappy bucks that I'll give today. But I just a couple of days ago, my first mentor in business at the Williams Companies. He was my first mentor and advocate. Passed away just 2 days ago. A gentleman by the name of Bill Hobbs, and Bill was an OSU, he was definitely OSU guy. But when I left, when I left OSU and I went to work at Williams, Bill was he was an advocate for me. He was a person who spoke to me, and I say he spoke life into me, because that experience of being at Williams and being there with 20,000 employees at the time. I'm a kid from Idabel, Oklahoma, a town of 7,000 people. And so when you know that you work in a company that has 3 times the number of people that live in the town you're from, it can be a little intimidating. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Right? And so, and for him to be in his position or in his role, and then to essentially choose to be an advocate for me, was a pretty surreal phone call that I got just 2 days ago, and even the last couple of times that I've come to Rotary in Stillwater, I've always reached out to him to let him know that, and I didn't get that opportunity today. And so, in part, what I want to, and the reason why I asked, I said, well, did Chris give you all the subject or the title? And then I'm like, I don't know if he did or not. And then Kara starts asking all these AI questions. I'm like, they're expecting AI. All right, so because I wanted to talk about the impact of advocacy, and for those of you who are in position to do it, my encouragement to you is that you do it. That you need people in the rooms who will speak up for you before you actually enter those rooms yourself. You need someone who's willing to refer, someone who's willing to recommend, or again, to be an advocate for you in conversations that you don't get to be part of. Now, many of you are successful in business and perhaps retired by now, and it could be something that you don't even give much consideration to. But if you'll think for a moment, if you'll think for just a moment, who has been an advocate for you? That person that spoke your name in a conversation that you weren't even a part of. And as a result of them speaking your name, you were perhaps promoted or advanced, or your business or your idea was given a shot. It is incumbent on all of us to, when we reach those places where we can speak on behalf of someone else, that we do so. And not just from a place of nepotism. Not just from a place of I like them. Not just from a place of we're related. But from a place of it was earned through the work that they've done. I say you reward effort, you reward results, more so than I just like that individual. Bill Hobbs, an OSU alum, was that for me. And I'm grateful that he was, because it's very likely that I don't stand here without him advocating for me. It's very, very likely, because now if you, in those moments when you don't have enough belief, it is important that you have someone else who believes in you, so that you're able to borrow their belief in you until your belief in yourself is strong enough. At least that's how it's worked out for me. And so I'm grateful to that, and I'm grateful to the OSU family that continues to do that. I get to speak tomorrow to the OSU Foundation, and that was a direct result of a relationship built here, and then going over to the Spears College and them hearing there, and so advocacy, it matters. And if you're wondering if there's anything that you can do that makes a difference, consider who in your life you can be an advocate for. One of the interesting things about what Kara and your quizzes and one of the fascinating things about it was the number of years that you could go back. Right, as far as 18, I didn't know Frankenstein was that, yeah, okay. We're trying not to use that word. Okay, all right. I didn't realize that it goes back that far, but when what you find yourself, whether you like it or not, you find yourself in the midst of a structural change. Now, there's a difference between a structural change and a cyclical change. Right? Cyclical changes are changes that are essentially temporary. They're more, because they're temporary, they have a higher frequency. So think seasons, they change. Hairstyles, they change. Clothing changes. Right? I just happen to forget socks today. I'm not making a fashion statement, but right? When I look at my son, he takes photos and he doesn't have any socks. I'm like, put socks on. He's like, Dad, this is the style. So this is not so much a fashion statement as much as it's hot, right? But so fashion, seasons, okay, cyclical changes. They're temporary, and so essentially when they go out of style, they'll come back in. So in a cyclical change, when you're in an environment where the changes are cyclical, you hear things like, well, there's nothing new under the sun. What goes around comes around, right? Nothing's new, right? And so in a cyclical change, you can wait that out. You can wait cyclical changes out and stick to like your core principles or fundamentals. But in a structural change, when you're in an environment of structural change, you only have the option of positioning yourself for leadership. Because in a structural change, by definition, things are not going back to the way that they were. So for example, if I said to you, do you believe that we're going to go back to the day pre-cell phone, your response to that would be absolutely, it's not happening. And it doesn't matter if you don't like cell phone technology. It doesn't matter if you think, well, we're in my day, no one needs to be that accessible. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. Right? If I came to you now and I said, man, I've got a wonderful idea for cassette tapes. And I'm looking for investors in my idea. I really believe it can work. That, it can contain about 10 songs. And what I'll do is, you can take the eraser part of a pencil, a number 2 pencil, and you can use that to dial it, tune it in, so that for when you put it into the car, we're going to add them to cars too. And so how ridiculous would it seem, okay? How ridiculous would I be to you if I were here passionately pleading with you to buy from me cassette tapes? It's like, well, who said, I got one in my car. You're the person I'm looking for, right? You get the idea, right? So, okay, but then, Steve Jobs says, well, here's what we can do. You can have 1,000 phones in your pocket, right? Structural. We're not going back to, say, the Pony Express. We're not going back to, say, days before or pre-email. I contend that AI is a structural change. And it's not a structural change because it's so new, to Kara's point. It's not a structural change because of how new it is. It is a structural change because of the scope or the breadth of influence that it will have on the masses of people. And so because the number of people who will get to touch it and experience it, it will represent a structural change. And in structural changes, the only option you have is to position yourself for leadership, or you get to be like Sears. Become obsolete. So it's like if you look at your business, it really does come down to that. Do we want to be Sears? I was speaking with some of the members of the team at the OSU Foundation just last week, and they were like, oh, by the way, so-and-so, she remembers you. She says that you all used to work at Hastings together. And I'm like, what? Hastings? I remember, that was like one of my first jobs when I got to Hastings. She said, mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was like, wow, whatever happened? And so it's like, well, I know what happened to Hastings. Right? You remember Blockbuster Video? Yeah, this is a different crowd. I ask that questions now, and some people are like, what was that? Right, Blockbuster. There was this company, Imagine, there was this company who used to believe that people loved getting into their cars about 9:50 at night and racing through their neighborhood, to return the VHS, right? And get it into that drop box just in time to not get late fees. And what happened is there's an organization called Netflix who approaches them and says, hey, we have an idea to stream the video directly into a person's home, and we don't need all of these like VHS. You won't need that. You won't need a VCR. We can just stream it directly into three times, 3 formal occasions where the founders at Netflix had approached Blockbuster Video and said, hey, you can take that, you have the money to do more than we're able to do, so like take it and run with it. 3 different times they were denied. But one of the biggest investors in Netflix was Hastings. Because when Blockbuster wouldn't listen, the folks over at Hastings said, man, we're battling this giant, Blockbuster Video. Maybe this is the future of it. So whether it's Blockbuster Video or Sears or Kodak, when you get caught comfortable and in an environment where, see, when we're comfortable, here's the reality. The only people who don't want things to change when they're comfortable are the people who benefit the most by things staying where they are. So in your organizations, identify the person who's most resistant to change, because that's usually the individual who benefits most from things staying the same. It's not about a passion for growing or expanding. They benefit from you staying the same, or they benefit from the organization staying the same. And you can do that in your personal relationships or your professional relationships. When you start speaking of change, when you start speaking of advancement, when you start to speak of doing things differently, doing things better, when you start to think of or speaking of growth, identify the individuals who push hardest against you doing something different, because the likelihood is, it's not absolute, but the likelihood is that the person most resistant to change is the individual who benefits most by things staying the same. And those people, especially when they're decision makers, will stunt the growth of your organization. AI is really not a debate on if, whether or not the change is structural. It's how do you position yourself for leadership in it. One of the ways that you position yourself for leadership in this age of artificial intelligence is to see the technology as a tool and not as a threat. Changing that perspective goes a long way. See, many people are, most people who are pushing against right, and discouraged by AI, or only they think about, well, it's going to take my job, it's going to take our jobs, it's going to replace me. Well, in truth, if you find yourself in a role or position where all you do is transactional versus transformational, in some respects, you deserve to be replaced. It's the difference between being transactional and transformational. When something is transactional, it's like we just did the deal, it's over, it's done. Transformational is a big difference. So when I am transformational in nature, or my business is transformational rather than transactional, then I actually care about the life of the individual that I'm doing business with and their life being improved or better. If you're not a person who runs a business where you're genuinely concerned about the individual having a better life as a result of doing business with you, then some would suggest that you don't really deserve to even be in business because you're focused on the transaction. So if you're going to lead in this environment, it's about seeing it as a tool rather than a threat. How is it a tool? One is going to process information faster than you and I can even think of the information. It's going to crunch numbers, is going to comprise or compile data and information for decision making much faster than a research or research assistant in a library someplace. It's going to take, imagine everything that's ever been out on the internet, right, and something being able to peruse it and gather that information and do so in light speed and about as fast as you can ask the question, it can provide you with an answer. So as a data-driven organization who is making decisions based on the data, not on whether or not I'm in the mood for it, right, you want to see that as a tool that you can use and not a threat to you. Another way that you can position yourself for leadership in this environment, and the great news about something else that Kara said was, well, only 40%, even ChatGPT, as much as it gets talked about, only less than 14% of people still today even know what ChatGPT is. Only less than 14% even know that exists, okay? So you still have an opportunity to position yourself for leadership, and another way that you do that is through having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Carol Dweck wrote the book Mindset. She's a Stanford professor, and her research is primarily on young students. And what they have been able to determine is that one of the ways to implant a fixed mindset, particularly on a child, is to tell them how smart they are. It actually leads to a fixed mindset. But how often do you see where it's, oh man, you're so smart, you're so smart, oh man, you're so smart, you're so smart. Well, what the research shows is that actually leads to a fixed mindset. Why? Because when the child comes up against a challenge that they don't immediately get or understand, because their conditioning has been, well, I'm very smart, when they don't get it initially, it now conflicts with what they've heard, and so as a result of that, they give up on solving the challenge much faster than those who are actually coming or who are actually encouraged because of the effort that they put in. So I'll say that differently. A child who has been conditioned of how smart they are, when they meet a challenge that they don't immediately understand or that they're not immediately able to solve, they will give up on the solution or finding the solution. They will give up on it faster if they've been conditioned of how to how smart they are, because it contradicts how they've been conditioned. Now, I was guilty of it too. I have children. You're so smart. You're so smart. You're so smart. My oldest son, right? But then I read this book, Mindset, and my youngest son, Sterling. I'm certain that he could count on one hand and probably not even get past 3 fingers the number of times that I've said to him that he's so smart. Because what the research shows was that you actually encourage or you promote the effort. So when he would bring home straight A's, or when he would bring home, he's on his dean's honor roll, when he would bring home results like that, it's, man, you put in a lot of hard work to do that. Proud of you. Great job. You put a lot of effort in to get those grades. Remember what you did to get that, right? And that has been his conditioning since grade school. That has been his conditioning, and even now, as he's continuing to get scholarships, I always speak to the effort applied to get that result. Now, where we used to be with that, okay, was, so when I really starting to take shape, he's a junior in high school at Booker T. Washington there in Tulsa. He's a junior in high school, and he completely bombs an exam. Like just, I said, did you even know that you were having the exam? I mean, just completely bombs it. Right? I was on the road, his mom, so then I get the call, and you can always kind of feel the call that's really not his call by choice, but it's you need to call your dad. And so he's like, Mom said I had to call. I'm like, why do I have to be the bad? I just can't even speak to you right now, Sterling. Call your dad. He's on the phone, and he's like, so this is what happened. Dad, I just screwed. I just messed up. Right. I'm like, I don't know if it's in relationship, school, or what. He hadn't got to a point yet. He's like, no, on my exam, I said, how bad was it? He's like, it was bad. I'm like, but how is there some comeback possibility? And it was bad. And then he said, I've made it harder on myself for the rest of the semester. So now I've got to, I'll figure it out. His words, I'll dig out of it. I just made it harder on myself this semester than it probably has to be. And I'm like, all right, then we're good. And he says, we're good? I said, yeah, we're good. And his mom takes the phone, what do you mean he's good? I'm like, he's good. He understands where he's at. And so but he now knew the position that he had put himself in by having developed a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. People with a fixed mindset tend to believe that things like intelligence are fixed, or either you got it or you don't. Right? I was listening to Kobe Bryant in an interview, and the interviewer was suggesting to Kobe, said, Kobe, you have that it factor. You just got that it factor. And to Kobe's credit, he paused that conversation. He said, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I don't believe in either you got it or you don't. And he went on to tell the story. He said, well, if that was the case, then the coaches who observed me when I was 11 or 12 years old playing summer basketball in Philadelphia would have never thought I could be where I am, because I went through that entire summer and I didn't score a point. And the interviewer was like, you didn't score? How do you go the whole summer league and not even score? He's like, not a free throw, not a layup, nothing. I scored no points. That 11 age, I didn't. He says, so I don't believe that you either have it or you don't. That is evidence of a fixed mindset. You either have it or you don't. He went on to say that everything that I know today, I know it because I've learned it. Very little did we come into the world able to do automatically. Those things that we are through our autonomic nervous system, like your heart beats, your cells reproduce, your blood circulates, and so forth. Yes, but from tying your shoe to spelling your name, everything that you know how to do today, you know it because you learned it. And so this idea of either you got it or you don't is an escapism type theology that removes the responsibility for me to learn that which I am interested in. It's not either I got it or I don't. It's if I want it, I go learn it. The same with artificial intelligence and this technology. It's not enough to say, well, I don't get it, so I put it aside, because whether it's going to benefit you or benefit your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, it's fun to learn from people that we know have our best interest. And then finally, it's this. Because it's new, or it will feel new, then you're going to be going through the 4 stages of growth, and most people don't get beyond the second stage, okay? 4 stages, most people don't get beyond the second stage because it gets a little inconvenient and uncomfortable, right? And so the first stage, and this is the stage whether it's in tying your shoe or, learning this technology, these are the stages that you're going to go through, and you don't get a choice in it if you're going to actually learn it. The first stage is where we are what is referred to as unconscious incompetent. Unconscious and incompetent. It's like I don't know what I don't know. I'm not good at it, and don't even know that I'm not good at it. right? I'm terrible and don't know it, right? For those of, I see Mr. Bailey here, and he became a friend as a result of being here, and we even got to play Karsten Creek. So I'll use a golf example, right? So a new person out on the golf course, first day ever swinging a golf club, right? They're swinging and missing, swinging and missing, swinging and missing. Those people laugh when that happens. You know, someone like me who's been playing for a while, if I don't even know the last time I swung and missed, but I'm definitely upset. It's definitely not a funny situation for me, okay? But a person, you know, brand new, just getting started, swing and miss, or swing and the ball moves just a little bit, it's like, okay, that was great, it moved, it's wonderful, yeah, okay? Or a new person on the job, I heard commercial banking a little bit earlier, okay? So a new person on the job, just out of, you know, still wet behind the ears, coming out of OSU, ready to get started at Simmons Bank, right? And as a person who is experienced, you know that this individual, this new, you know, employee has no idea what they don't know. But they're excited about that first day. They're excited about getting started. But, you know, it's like they're unconsciously incompetent. They don't know what they don't know. When we learn something new, we all go through that. All right? And then we get to stage 2. If we hang around enough, we get to stage 2, which is where we're we're consciously incompetent. Conscious incompetence. Now I know that I don't know. At first I was just having a ball. It was just fun. Now it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is hard. It's like my first day at work, everybody's welcoming me in. I may even go to lunch with the people. It's great. And then after a couple of weeks, I get an actual project. Whoa, there's actual work involved. Now I'm consciously incompetent. If I like that experience on the golf course that day, like it was fun, I really like that, but now I want to get good at it, and then I'm attempting to get good, it's difficult. And most people don't make it through stage 2. They don't have the resilience necessary to move through the discomfort or even the embarrassment of not knowing. And so they quit. That said, if you're a person who's willing to move through stage 2, then you actually give yourself an advantage. You position yourself for leadership if you're willing to go through being embarrassed or that feeling of being a beginner or being in an environment or a space where you don't know. Because stage 3 is where you're now consciously competent. You're starting to see some success, right? You're starting to collect some wins, but you're still close enough to the beginning that you know what it was like to get started. Okay? And so you're not so far removed that you've forgotten what it was like to be at the start, to be at the beginning. For those of you who are in leadership or business owners, it's why some of the great research that is available show CEOs and leaders of organizations who still make it a point to spend time with people who are in their first quarter of work or their first year. They are deliberate about still spending time with people who are just getting started because it keeps them connected to what it's like to just be getting started or to just be beginning. It's a wonderful practice that you can employ, right? It's to get with or connect with someone who's just beginning. I think that's what Bill was doing for me, and he was definitely an advocate. So you go through that stage of consciously competent, and then stage 4 is where you are unconscious and competent. And unconscious competent, these are the greats. They make it seem so easy. It's like in sports, it's like they're moving in slow motion and everybody else is working so hard to stop them, and yet they're not able to do it. It's like, they make it look so easy. And many of you in this room, in your profession, in your world, your industry, you have forgotten more than a beginner even knows they need to understand. You've forgotten more information than some people even know they need to study because you've been doing it so it's automatic. And so that's the stage of an unconscious competent. You don't have to be consciously aware of what's happening. And so if you are a person who desires to position yourself for leadership in this age, one, it's recognizing that you don't have a choice. It's not going to go backwards. Okay? You could choose not to be a leader, but if you're going to be a leader in this environment, then you embrace that it's not going backwards because it's a structural change. Secondly, it's about embracing the growth mindset, and regardless of age, we can do that. Growth versus fixed. And so whether it's just going to be, maybe you don't do it, your desire to do it isn't because it benefits you, but maybe it benefits your children or your grandchildren. And so you're going to position yourself with a growth mindset, right, and open to collaboration and ideas so that you don't, so that you're not spoken of, like Sears and Blockbuster Video. And then 3 is about knowing that willingness to be a beginner. In your willingness to be a beginner, know that there are 4 stages. Okay, and everything that you know today, you know because you were willing to go through those stages of learning and growth. And we don't get to get around it. And so you can reach the stage of unconscious competence, but it does require a level of resilience or mindset shaped for resilience because, as you've heard me, as I said, I believe the last time I was here, we don't get exonerated from challenge. We don't get exonerated from adversity. Right? There's no school that we can attend to make it where we don't have difficult times. Adversity visits everybody. So since it visits everybody, you just got to make sure that it doesn't become a roommate. Make it a visitor. Make sense? All right. And so I hope that helps. If it does, then don't keep it a secret. Let someone know that this exists. And, Chris, if you're listening, it is still an opportunity for me to acknowledge you publicly. I don't take lightly when people refer me into their circles of influence. It's not something that I will ever take lightly because I know that in this moment, to a degree, I represent him and his referral. So thank you all very much. I appreciate the time and attention. Shane, I turn it back to you. Thank you very much. Oh, you want questions?
We're at 1 o'clock. We have time for 1 or 2 questions quickly. Somebody, or is everybody educated? Or if you're like me, you're going to have to go back and watch the replay that Kevin put up tonight because there's several things and my learning's a little slow that you're going to have to
I'm going
to have to take some notes.
All right, I appreciate it.
But,
I appreciate it.
I'll ask a quick one.
Okay.
I got one. So I struggle with this.
Is it AI trivia?
No, it's not AI trivia.
Right.
But I struggle with my feelings on AI. I'll give you an example. I mean, going back to grade school through high school, I hate math. I was always the kid getting yelled at in class, like, put your calculator up. And I feel bad because to this day, I don't do simple math. I pull out my phone, pull up my calculator. Yeah. Is AI making society as a whole less skilled and less intelligent?
That's a good question. And in my view, I think for our environment or for what we know, the answer to that would be yes. But it's also my belief, I have a belief in God, and so my belief is that everything is for further expansion. It's my belief that everything is for growth and expansion. And so for he who is in control, even though I am not able to see it or understand how it grows or expands, I believe that his kingdom is for expansion. And just because I don't see or understand it, I don't have to see or understand it. We're still moving towards growth, and what is required for growth will be a part of how it unfolds.
I like it. Courtland, on behalf of the club, I guess this will be the 3rd time we'll be donating a book to our public library in your honor.
Thank you.
Our club believes in education, so thank you for coming yet again, and always a great pleasure to have you on.
Thank you very much.
The program.
I appreciate
so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.